Good afternoon. Now that Paul Ballman is here, we can start our meeting. Welcome to the 5,286th meeting of the Rotary Club of Tulsa, originally Club number 145, now Club 2500, District 6110. We've got another great program for you today. We've got to have an invocation and pledge from Elaine Dishman, followed by guest introductions from Ashley Cutshaw.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, inspire us today with the qualities of good leadership. Give us insight to make wise decisions, integrity to face the truth, courage to make difficult choices, and compassion for the needs of others. Make us a model of justice and honor to the world, and let us never forget that our job is to serve both you and others. Amen. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello. I'm going to do guest introductions, so if the guest and the host Rotarian will please stand, then we'll do applause at the end. All right, so we have Dylan Harden brought Zach Fate. Host Rotarian Joe Moran brought his wife Darcy Moran. John Bumgarner brought Ava Bumgarner. And Bob Sade brought his childhood friend Methuselah. I think that was an April Fool's joke. All right, please welcome our guests.
That was good, Ashley. Thank you, Ashley and Elaine. A little bit of sad news to share with you today. Many of you have heard that Rotarian Judge David Peterson passed away recently. David was a friend of mine, and he mentored me through the Above and Beyond Awards Committee years and years ago. You probably didn't know he was one of the guys that had a deed to a seat at the Dallas Raceway where they hold the big NASCAR races. He was just a great guy. He was a dedicated member of our club for 24 years. He served as co-chair of the Nicaragua Water Well Project for 2 decades. Under his leadership, the Rotary Club of Tulsa successfully drilled more than 700 water wells. It was an international effort that brought clean, life-sustaining water to more than 200,000 people and villages across Nicaragua. Through his example, he showed us that it is possible that when people come together to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities and within ourselves, we can have a significant impact. Think about that. One man involved in something that produces clean water for over 200,000 people across an entire nation. David's funeral service will be held tomorrow, April 2nd, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, located at 12110 East 7th Street in Tulsa. I believe that service will be live streamed. If you would like to join it that way, please keep David's family in your thoughts and prayers. We go from kind of a solemn moment to a bit of a celebratory moment. 111, Bob, I don't know if you remember 111 years ago or not, but 111 years ago today, our club was chartered with Rotary International. And the story of Rotary Club number 145, which was our original club number, And Rotary in Tulsa began in November of 1914, several months before the official charter was granted on that April Fool's Day in 1915. At that time, if you can imagine, November of 1914, Tulsa was a small but rapidly growing town on the banks of the Arkansas River in the very young and new state of Oklahoma that many people still knew as Indian Territory. Now, it wasn't some dark and stormy night when the plan for Rotary Club of Tulsa was formed, but it was during the bright days of autumn that two separate groups of businessmen independently were struck with the same idea that the town of Tulsa was ready for Rotary. That first spark came from a chance street corner conversation between R.C. Dick Stueve and Paul Galloway, who later would become our very first president. Encouraged by a fella named Charlie Dawson out of the Muskogee Rotary Club. Charlie was the district governor for this area at that time. They began reaching out to business and professional leaders in the Tulsa area. They took a single page from the then very thin phone book for the town of Tulsa, and they identified enough men of character, they called it, to form a club. Just weeks later, a second spark emerged. A gentleman named W.F. Stahl returned from a Rotary meeting in Toledo, Ohio, and shared his enthusiasm with a fellow named Fred Shaw, who had just returned from a Rotary meeting in Kansas City. As they began organizing their own Rotary effort, they quickly discovered the other group, Galloway, and his group that were working on a Rotary club. And rather than compete, they decided to get together and proved early on that collaboration would define Rotary in Tulsa. Together, those four fellows organized a lunch at the newly opened Hotel Tulsa. With guidance from Rotarians in Muskogee, momentum grew quickly. Now, a little quick perspective. Why was Muskogee so influential in forming a Tulsa club? Well, in 1910, Muskogee was a bigger town than Tulsa. Tulsa was barely 10 or 12,000 people. By 1915, Tulsa had grown, but Muskogee was more on the national radar than Tulsa was at that time. But by 1950, the city of Tulsa had grown to 28,000 people, and by 1920, Tulsa had 72,000 people. Muskogee was right about 30,000. What do you say, Jerry? Oh, wow.
I was executive director of Tulsa Boys Home when he was on the board. He was a wonderful gentleman. I just want to add about Mr. Stahl and the Rotary started the Tulsa Boys Home.
Well, and you know, Mary Beth talked about that some last week, and she didn't mention Mr. Stahl's name, but I appreciate you doing that. I didn't realize that, Jerry. Thank you. Now, at that time, Rotary International in Chicago still wasn't sure about Tulsa. It was growing and things, but they just weren't certain. Seemed like it was a little small for a Rotary club, but the people here in Tulsa knew better. Fueled by the oil boom that was going on, Tulsa's population was rising rapidly, and the energy of the people in the community were undeniable to the Rotarians in Chicago. Oil was everywhere, and deals were made right on the floors in Hotel Tulsa. Those floors at Hotel Tulsa were designed to illustrate a map of square mile sections. And how do you think wildcatters decided where to drill? They looked at those 1 mile sections to pick out what they wanted to lease to run their drilling rigs. Hotel Tulsa floor was set up to reflect that. The confidence of the leaders in Tulsa convinced Rotary International to move ahead, and on April 1st, 1915, Tulsa was officially chartered as the 145th Rotary Club in the world. Paul Galloway, that we talked about earlier, was the first president. He led the inaugural meeting, and I'm thinking we may need to reenact this inaugural meeting sometime soon. It sounds a little exciting. It was a reading of Rotary's guiding principles, so I'm going to see if Karen McCannell will set that up for one of her meetings next year. Meetings were held on Wednesdays at 12:15. Why did they pick Wednesdays? They picked Wednesdays because the Oklahoma City Rotary Club met on Tuesday and the Muskogee Rotary Club met on Thursday. So you could hit 3 Rotary meetings in the area in 3 days. Get this, a Rotary meal at that first meeting was 35 cents. Behind the scenes of all this activity, there were some unsung heroes. A gentleman by the name of Ed Looney of Muskogee made a special effort to chauffeur District Governor Charlie Dawson from Muskogee to Tulsa for as many meetings as possible, despite the rough roads and the flat tires, to support the formation of the Tulsa Club. As Tulsa grew into the oil capital of the world, Rotary Club 145 grew with it, meeting first at the Hotel Tulsa, then the YMCA, then the Mayo Hotel, and eventually finding its long-term home here at the church. Over the decades, Rotary Club 145, now 2500, has become known as Tulsa's premier business forum. Its speakers have included leaders from every field, industry, government, art, athletics. Notable guests have ranged from Will Rogers and J.C. Penney to Walter Cronkite, Dale Carnegie, Joan Crawford, and Tulsa's own Roy Clark. The club has welcomed astronauts, Olympians, and global leaders, all drawn to the influence and engagement of this Rotary audience. From 2 small gatherings in 1914 to a legacy spanning 111 years, Rotary Club 145 has remained rooted in service, leadership, and community. Our Centennial Rotary Plaza stands as a lasting symbol of that legacy. It's a 7-year effort to raise the funds and build that plaza. It was the largest undertaking in our club's history. It culminated in a $1 million gift of public art to the citizens of the city of Tulsa. Located on the Williams Center Green downtown, the plaza was funded entirely by our club and its generous members. Stands as a testament to the power of Rotarians working together to make a difference while honoring Tulsa's enduring spirit of philanthropy and volunteerism. In 2012, 3 years ahead of our centennial, we celebrated that plaza's completion with a dedication ceremony and luncheon. And then in 2015, on our centennial, we marked our 100th anniversary with a black tie gala attended by more than 460 guests, including Rotary International President Wilf Wilkinson, who said it best that evening, "What a grand and magnificent project. Tulsa will be a major destination for Rotarians everywhere. We already know from the efforts with the Route 66 Centennial and Rotary International that Tulsa will see a lot of Rotarian traffic celebrating that centennial and celebrating Rotary." I'd like to extend a sincere thank you from this podium to those who led the recent renovation work for that plaza: Jerry Stamper, Bill Vogel, Curtis Craig, and Phil Ashley. Your work inspires and ensures this symbol of our legacy continues to inspire. We're also I guess they're clapping for you, Bill Vogel. I don't know. What can you say? We're also grateful for the continued support of the Rotary Club Board of Directors and the Rotary Club of Tulsa Foundation Board of Trustees, who funds the maintenance of that plaza. I encourage each of you to take a little time to visit the Rotary Plaza on Williams Green and reflect on the impact of those who came before us and the responsibility that we carry forward. Here's just a little known piece of our club history as we wrap up. George Stanley, who served as the club president in 1932 and 1933, boy, one of those guys is really handsome, and joined Rotary before the club was officially chartered, is the grandfather of our fellow Rotarian, Bill Glenn, who's sitting in the back there. 3 generations of members, a powerful reminder that Rotary's legacy is not only preserved in our history, that lives on through the generations. I'm just curious, how many folks here are second or second generation Rotarians? You had an uncle or a father or someone like that. Lane, I see a bunch of you. That's great. That Rotary means a lot. I get to introduce another fabulous Rotarian of the day. Case Anderson is a graduate of Oklahoma State University and a commercial real estate professional with Legacy Commercial Property Advisors here in Tulsa, where he focuses on office, retail, and development opportunities across the region. Originally from Ponca City, Case now calls Tulsa home and is passionate about the continued growth and future of the city. He enjoys working with local business owners, developers, and community leaders to help bring new ideas and projects to life. In addition to his brokerage work, he also manages a small portfolio of single-family rental properties. Case is currently leading our Camp Enterprise event. That means he's very important to me, which is now just 9 days away. I see Brian Bovard is here today, too. We'll talk about him in a little while. He's looking for additional support. We need a few more volunteers as we prepare for another great year. Outside of his work, he enjoys golfing, cooking, live music. Please join me in welcoming Case Anderson.
Thanks, Carl. Well, I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker today, Chris Zervis, which Zervis above self kind of sounds pretty nice, really. But why it's better to eat Twinkies together than broccoli alone. Self-care, resiliency, and grit. With anxiety at an all-time high, Chris Zervis will share practical strategies to navigate change, support your team, and build resilience in the workplace. Chris Zervis helps busy leaders strengthen communication, elevate leadership, and boost employee engagement to improve organizational performance. He's a co-founder and president of Baby Builders, an infant exercise program, and author of Bomb-Proof Constructive Feedback. Chris holds a master's degree in communication from Wheaton College and is a former student athlete at the University of Oklahoma. Very cool. Go Pokes, though. His background includes teaching at the college level and serving as a mediator for Washington County, Oklahoma Court, and a proud Cherokee citizen. He lives in Oklahoma with his wife and 5 children. Please welcome Chris.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. How are we today? You guys well? Very good, very good. How many of you guys played Little League baseball or Little League softball? Very nice. And how many of you guys now are continuing to coach? Anybody? Way to go, Chaz. Let's give Chaz a hand. Very good, very good. Well, I played baseball in Bartlesville. I'm going to hop down here. I'm a little more comfortable just being among you. And I played baseball in Bartlesville, Little League baseball, and while I wasn't very good in the field, I was far worse at the plate, all right? And, but my buddy, he was hitting home runs in the field behind me, went on to have a bunch of records at Missouri State. I was the king of dribblers to the mound. He came to watch one night. I don't know what came over me, but I crushed a pitch really late over the first baseman's head, went to the fence. And in Bartlesville, much like Tulsa Little League, there is a gene selective process for right fielders, right? And that involves kids who are built a little more for comfort than for speed, shall we say. So I knew that this had a chance. And I started running. I hit first base. I'm watching things as I go to second. I'd hit second, and I'm coming, and I hit third base. And I take a couple steps, and I'm like, I got this. I got this. And so I run. I slide under the tag. The ump's over the play, and he says, "You are out." And I did what any insecure 12-year-old would do. I started crying. The movie lied, folks. There is crying in baseball. And I grab my stuff. I go finish the game. And there's two conversations that happen after the game. And one is that the umpire, it's a small town in Bartlesville, and the umpire comes up to me and says, I blew the call. And I'm 12 years old. You know, I don't know what to say. I should have said something like, I'll probably forget about it. And, right. But then there was another conversation that took place with my baseball manager. And he said to me, Chris, what about your third base coach? I'm like, third base coach? I've barely been to third base all year. Third base coach? But as you know, the third base coach stands outside of the diamond. And he looks at the entire field and all the plays that are going on. And he gives a perspective to the runner that the runner doesn't possess. He tells him, stand, slide, or keep going. One of the theses that we're going to talk about today is this, that we all need third base coaches. We all need third base coaches. We're going to be talking about resiliency today. And you guys are leaders in this community, and your resiliency matters tremendously. It matters not simply for yourselves, but it matters that you're resilient for those that you lead, because they're dependent upon your resiliency to help them. As we walk forward today, it's important to know that there's some great brain science behind resiliency and stress. And one of the things, first of all, let's look at our amygdala. And everybody's familiar with that word. And the amygdala, as you know, is kind of like a smoke alarm. It's our internal smoke alarm. And it goes off loud, and it goes off fast, and it goes off unruly, and it's very dramatic. And if we were to look at it under a microscope, it would probably look something like this. But thankfully, we also have a prefrontal cortex. And our prefrontal cortex is what kind of steps in and regulates the amygdala. And it brings calm to the situation. And it steadies things and says, let's figure out a little bit what's going on here. And it looks kind of like this. And they talk back and forth. Our amygdala and our prefrontal cortex communicate back and forth, and it probably looks a little bit like this. But thankfully, as we mature, as men and women with service over self, our prefrontal cortex begins to grow in our ability to harness our amygdala, and we become a little more mature. And we handle stress better and ultimately win battles like this. So as we think about today, we are going to look at 3 points. We're going to talk about choosing to be cheerful, that resiliency is rooted in relationships, and lastly, that to live well is to remember well. To live well is to remember well. My encouragement for you today is choose one of these 3 to kind of put in your holster as a new bullet. Or strengthen the bullet that's there is probably a better way to say that. My son sent me a little video of a car he was following in Tulsa. And this car was a Honda, and this Honda was all ramped up. It had big tires. It was a CRV. Big tires, big shocks, big luggage rack on top, and just stood pretty high. And on the bumper sticker, he took a picture, and it said this. It said, education is important. Lifted Hondas are importanter. And so I want you to choose one of these that is importanter for you than the rest, all right? So let's dive into choosing to be cheerful. You know, one of the great things about being a human being is we get to choose our altitude every moment. We get to choose our joy level. We get to choose how we enter an interaction at every moment of every day. Sometimes that's more difficult than others. Certainly, we've all experienced that. But we have this great ability to choose to be cheerful. My first job was in Branson, Missouri. And this day in particular was a lot more difficult for me to choose to be cheerful. And I was walking across some Berber carpeting. I was living in the basement of a home, and it had some French doors with some silk sheer curtains over it. And I reached for the door handle that day, and all of a sudden I got overcome with emotion of depression, anxiety, and fear like I'd never had before in my life. And it hit me hard. And I really wasn't quite sure how to respond to that. I went to see a friend who was a counselor, and this counselor immediately gave me a book. And this is a book that you can know by the cover and you can judge by the cover. It's a fantastic book. It's called Happiness is a Choice. And as I shared before, we have the God-given ability every moment to choose our happiness. And it's fantastic. And it's not easy always. But through this book's help and a lot of other things, it's helped me realize I need to choose that every moment. There's a second point of choosing to be cheerful, and it's this, that we need to think about things that are true. Stanford did some research and found that if we choose to try to suppress anxious thoughts that are bothering us, that those thoughts will just pop up like a jack-in-the-box. It might be while we're running, in a conversation, working out, eating a meal. But trying to suppress thoughts really doesn't work. They said you have to replace them. But if we replace them with whatever, it doesn't really matter. We need to replace them with things that are true. Researchers tell us that 97% of the things that we fear ultimately don't happen. So if we replace things with that are true, we begin to gain a stability. There's an old poem that says this. It's a simile of a man that thinks about things that are true. And it's compared to a tree. And he said this tree is like a tree that's planted by streams of water. It yields fruit in its season. Its leaf does not wither. And whatever it does, it prospers. A tree like that provides shelter, it provides shade, and it provides nourishment for the people around them. As leaders in Tulsa, choosing to be cheerful, thinking about things that are true, allow you to have service over self. Allow you to have service over self. There's handouts in front of all of you. What I would like to encourage you to do, we're going to take about 30 seconds. I want you to jot down in the upper right-hand corner one thought that's a plaguing thought that you're trying to suppress. What's a true thought instead that you could focus on in its place? I'm going to give you 30 seconds, and then we'll keep rolling. About 10 seconds. You guys have just done a great job, but that was obviously a written exercise and not oral, and you guys stayed with me so well. Let's keep marching. So we talked a little bit about the two pieces of choosing to be cheerful. So let's talk now about that resiliency is rooted in relationships. There was research that came out recently from the Harvard Business Review, and these researchers found that though resiliency is an internal capability, it's really driven as well and strengthened by relationships. Dr. Brene Brown out of the University of Houston says this, that we are neurobiologically wired for relationship. And as we look at in our brains again, what happens to our brains when we're in a great relationship, we get a dose, I heard a speaker say once, and we get a dose of dopamine, which is that feel-good hormone. We get a dose of oxytocin, which is that cuddle hormone, that belonging thought. We get a dose of serotonin, which is peaceful, and a dose of endorphins, which is the runner's high that we enjoy after a great workout. In 1955, there were two men, Jim Wilson and Bob Coons. And these men were climbers, and they climbed together with a technique called short roping. And in short roping, it's just that. You use a short rope about 10 yards apart from your climbing partner to ensure your safety. Rather than somebody falling 100 yards down a snowy slope, your partner can brace immediately with just a 10-yard rope. On this day in 1955, they were climbing in the Tetons, and it was a narrow precipice, and they recognized that a step off the side would be instant death for both of them. And Jim Wilson and Bob Coons were carefully, single file, taking short, easy steps on this narrow precipice. But unfortunately, a terrible thing happened, and Jim Wilson lost his footing, and he fell off the side. But without missing a beat, Bob Coons dove over the other side and saved both their lives. To be servant leadership leaders in this community, we've got to have people to short rope with. On your handout is the 8 areas that Harvard says we need people to short rope with. I'm going to give you about a minute to look at that. Star the places where you have somebody that fulfills this relationship for you, and circle the areas that perhaps I need a little more depth of relationship or somebody to help me there. I'll give you about a minute for this written exercise as well, and then we will continue to march. About 15 more seconds. All right. An encouragement would be to take that home, ponder those thoughts if you didn't have time to finish it, but we need people to short rope with in our life. There's very few things more beautiful than a couple people in harmony that fulfill needs for each other and carries each other's burdens. We've talked about horizontal relationships. Let's stop for just about 30 seconds and talk about a Godward relationship. Praying unceasingly is an important part of our lives. This is from CNN. It says, here's what's built some resilience as well. It provides these things when we're prayerful people. Now let's turn back to our horizontal relationships. Anybody familiar with the Grant study? Anybody familiar with a grant study? The grant study was started in 1938 with 268 Harvard sophomores. And its intention was to study what makes a healthy, well-adjusted, prosperous adult. It was the most comprehensive, longitudinal study that had ever taken place in the United States. These 268 Harvard sophomores, among them was a man named John. And John, every year, like his 267 other colleagues, was probed, tested, examined every year. Physically, emotionally, socially, financially, as a husband, as a father, in every way that they could think of in order to figure out what made a healthy adult. And John, after World War II, his stress was elevated because, like many of his friends, he had some dangerous situations in World War II and suffered a little bit of post-traumatic stress. For many years, the grant study, its data was not released because John was none other than a guy named John Fitzgerald Kennedy. The data began to come out in the late 90s and early 2000s, and in 2012, George Vaillant wrote a book called Triumphs of Excellence. And Vaillant found all kinds of data about these men, but if he was to summarize it down, he said, if it was to be a telegram, I would say this: relationships matter, hard stop. Our relationships matter tremendously for our well-being. Flinders University out of Australia said this. And my friend Mike Merrill said this. And there's free Twinkies back there for you guys as well. Take one and eat one with a buddy, all right? But again, our resiliency is to be given away. Our resiliency exists that we can help others in Tulsa be resilient. So who might that be? Who might that be for you? We've talked about choosing to be cheerful, that there's two parts of it, that I can choose my altitude, but I need to think about things that are true. We've talked about the fact that resiliency is rooted in relationship. And one way of saying that, we all need some third base coaches and we all need some short roping people with us. And let's now look at this. To live well is to remember well. On January 1st of 2020, I had this great idea that I was going to do a New Year's resolution for our family. And so I took all these pieces of paper and I tore them and I put them in this enormous bowl. It was like this heaping bowl of paper, and I put it on our dining room table. And then I took another bowl that was empty and I put it beside it. And I was so excited because I've been studying a gratitude journal or Thanksgiving journal. And I was like, we're going to do this as a family, and it's going to be fantastic. And so my picture was that I'd call my kids to dinner, and they would be there like that. And they would sit down and grab a little piece of paper, write something they were thankful for, and put it in the other bowl. And it was working so great, you guys, for about 13 days, like every New Year's resolution. And then we had paper everywhere and cleaning up. It was just an absolute disaster. But I was committed to the idea of a Thanksgiving journal. So at our table, somewhat frequently, we pass around a little journal because Thanksgiving journals are really powerful things. How many of you guys have a gratitude journal or Thanksgiving journal that you do now? Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. So first question. Jot down your answer, and if you are plus or minus 5% on this, you get free enrollment into a class starting next month, People Leadership Series. First 2 people within plus or minus 5%. Cortisol is the anxiety hormone that raises up within us. So what percentage, write down your answer, what percentage does a Thanksgiving journal lower cortisol in our bodies? Plus or minus 5% wins. I'll give you about 10 more seconds. Who's feeling pretty confident right now? Who's feeling pretty confident? Way to go. Way to go. All right, survey says 23%. Anybody nail it? Chaz, big winner, baby. Way to go, Chaz. All right, so let's look at some other things that a Thanksgiving journal does. It improves our interpersonal relationships. If I'm grateful for everything that I have, I don't judge people as much as I tend to and don't want to. Because I recognize, who am I to judge anybody else? All that I have, I've received. It does some other fantastic things. It decreases materialism. I don't know about you, but I could use a dose of that. I could use a dose of this. That's kind of a weird one, isn't it? That a Thanksgiving journal does this, but I'm just telling you like it is, folks. And lastly, lowers depression. A challenge I'd like to issue is for you to start today, and we're going to start in just a moment, and see what happens in your world over the next 6 months if you were to do this 6 days a week. So let's start right now. We're going to hop in a helicopter. Imagine yourself sitting there. The nose is down. It's flying over Tulsa, and it just stopped, and it's dropping down, and it's hovering over your home. I want you to lean out the side. You're double buckled. I want you to lean out the side, and I want you to make a note of what are 3 great things you see over your home right now. It might be a garden. It might be a trampoline in the backyard, or kids playing soccer back there. It might be the fact you have a roof over your head. Somebody that loves you. But I want you to jot down on your handout 3 things that you're thankful for right now. We're starting your Thanksgiving journal right now. About 5 more seconds. There are apps for Thanksgiving or gratitude journals, and you might even jot down something that this was a monumental thing in my life that changed my life that you're grateful for. Like a memorial to an event. There are many of those in our lives that we should remember out of gratitude that made us who we are today. So we've talked about 3 things. Circle on your handout, if you would, one of the 3 that is the importanter one. And see if you can continue to cultivate that in your life. We've got time for a couple questions, and then I will wrap us up with a quick story. What questions do you have? Yes, sir. Carl.
You talked about the workshop that you'll be offering. Do you offer online tools for things like gratitude and resiliency?
This workshop is online, and it's going to talk a little bit about that. It features emotional intelligence, communication skills, servant leadership, and one other thing. It's Tuesdays from 12 to 1 online, And those are 5 of the 6 topics. I can't remember what the other one is, but that'll be touched on. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One more question. Time for one more. Yes, sir. Ah, that's great. Amen. Huh, good. Yeah. Good. Ah, that's great stuff. Thank you, sir. So the state capitol is about 285 feet tall. Sequoias are about 300 feet tall. So if we were to plant a sequoia in the front yard of the state capitol, it would stand above the Indian. I don't know what that Indian's name is or what it's called exactly, but it would be taller than our state capitol. How many of you guys have seen the sequoias? Yeah, they're amazing. So cars drive through them. One of them 92 feet in circumference. Okay, there's a specific sequoia in the redwood forest called the President. It's named after Warren Harding, and this particular sequoia is about 300 feet tall. Stephen Stillett has been studying the sequoia for years. It has over 2 billion leaves. And if you were to cut it in 1x1 cubes and lay it on the field at TU, it would cover it. I mean, it's that big. Sequoias have this incredibly thick bark, so if lightning strikes it, they don't care. And they wave their branches as in worship. What makes a sequoia is an amazing thing that gives them their stature and their strength. It's not their bark, it's not their anything else. What sturdies up a sequoia is the fact when they drive their roots down, they intermingle them with other sequoias. That provides their stability. Today we've talked about several areas of resiliency. If you can't decide which one to focus upon, may I encourage you to think about driving your roots down with other Tulsans that are like-minded as you to provide your stability. You guys have been fantastic today. Thanks for letting me be with you. I know there's a few more announcements, and we'll let him get to that.
Chris, I do believe your presentation has presented me personally with more practical applications than any program we've had this year. I really appreciate what you said, and taking it to heart, I'll shout out to Tom Klenda for short roping me on things related to our club rules and bylaws. A shout out to Bill Vogel for third base coaching me on dealing with Rotary overall, and a shout out to Tina Miller for short roping me on Rotary DNA. I'm grateful for those things, and I will write those down. Chris, that was excellent. Thank you again. Please. By and large, I would say that Rotarians are grateful people in the first place, which is part of what makes us generous, which is one of the characteristics associated with thinking about gratitude. I'm grateful to be a part of an organization full of people like you. A book honoring today's program will be donated to our partners in education, Celia Clinton Elementary School. This week's book title is What You'd Like Me to Be, which is speechless. Join us for our annual exchange with the Rotary Club of Oklahoma City on April 21st. I have registered for a seat on the bus. Has anybody else registered for a seat on the bus. Jenny Graham has been stopping by the liquor store in her area every day on the way home and picking up stuff to put in her bag that she'll have on that bus to share. We're going to leave the First Methodist parking lot at 7:45 that morning on April 21st, and we'll be back about 5:30. The cost is $45 a person. We got room for 56 folks, I believe, so there's a few seats left. It includes your round-trip transportation, 2 tours there during the day, and a lot of opportunity to mingle with the Oklahoma City Club members. You'll find the registration link in the Monday message. We've got some more good programs coming up. Have any of you ever heard of a lady named Sherry Cole? She's going to be here next week. We've got a lady you may not have heard of named Olivia Bryce. Olivia and her husband come to us from South Africa, I believe. Chaz, is that right? And they have a couple of coffee shops and pastry stores. Their story is quite unique. It's about the journey coming to this country. So you'll enjoy that. And then another name, maybe a few of you have heard, Joe Castiglione. I think he may have an opinion about the NIL that he'll share with us and enlighten us a little bit. We've got one committee meeting today after the program in room 231. Rob Gardenhire is heading up our programs committee for next year. Rob, I sure appreciate you taking on that task. And so if you could please join him and talk about next year's programs. I want to thank our Rotary sponsors. You see their placards on our table. I'm going to write Rotary sponsors in my gratitude journal tonight. We appreciate their contributions to make our club thrive. Please consider doing business with your fellow Rotarians first. Now, I mentioned Brian Bovard earlier. Brian is wearing a bright orange shirt. He's highly visible, easy to detect, and he is rounding up the volunteers for Camp Enterprise. This year, in order to set foot on the campground, you must have completed a basic background check. So he will help you get set up with that. We do need some more volunteers. I will be there Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. And so I hope many of you will choose to join us for that event. It's April 9th through the 12th. And Brian, if you'll stop and see him, will help you with information on that. April 7th is Pins for Polio, which is hosted by the Will Rogers Rotary Club. Susie Morgan asked me to let everyone know for $40 you can go to Andy B's Bowl for a couple hours. I think they've got some snacks and drinks there for you, and that'll be a good time. We're working with the Will Rogers Rotary Club on a new concept for our gala event in September. Maybe you'll be able to learn some more about that then. And then, I don't know all the details on this, but Phil Viles is offering up 2 tickets to the Bedlam baseball game on April 14th. My understanding is they're great seats. I think we're going to auction those at next week's program, but if you're interested in going to Bedlam baseball on the 14th, be ready to bid on those. Now, as we close this meeting and celebrate this milestone anniversary day for our club, I'll leave you with a piece of Rotary tradition, a piece of musical Rotary tradition. Miguel's going to play a song for us. It's off of one of the original Rotary Men of Note LP albums, and it's a song that was written by James G. Sade. The name of the song is Buckle Down, Rotarian. Jimmy took the tune from Buckle Down Winsaki, the big hit from the 1943 Best Foot Forward musical, and he put fresh words to it. It became the theme song for Rotary Men of Note. Miguel, if you'll please play that for us as we leave. With that, folks, enjoy your Twinkies. We are adjourned. There are books for sale in the back. Mr. Gervais, books for sale in the back.